just a kind of recap. This is an interview that's going to be appearing in our Marianne-a-thon on January 13th um, as in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. is what our theme is for our marathon. And I just wanted to start out. Were you able to watch that video of Marianne that she did a couple of years ago in honor of Martin Luther King Jr.?
No, I wasn't. Was I supposed to do that?
Well, it's one that we're going to feature on our Marianne-a-thon. It's about 20 minutes long, and if you're Googling it up, it's the one where the bookcases in the background are shaped like diamonds.
What's shaped like diamonds? The cases?
The bookcases behind
Oh,
her
okay.
are shaped like a diamonds instead of being a horizontal shelf.
Okay.
That might help you out, might not. But in regards to that, we're just going to start with this first question, the question we've called the secret question. And the reason we've called it the secret question and didn't want it to get out is because we didn't want there to be a lot of pre-thought to the answer. We really want kind of a first reaction.
Okay.
And it is a what if question.
Yeah.
So it encompasses the imagination. And so this is the question, Oscar. If Martin Luther King Jr. had not been assassinated and instead had become a president of the United States, one what one aspect of the world would be different?
Mm.
Just one aspect, one thing. What would be different now?
Well, what comes to mind is I remember Martin Luther King being someone who was empowering individuals. So I think the one thing that would make that he would have made the difference as president um, is people having more hope in themselves um, and hope in terms of the contribution they could make to society. He was very inspirational, very empowering, um, and he believed in people, I think, and loved people. And I think that leadership and that demonstration of leadership and that demonstration of humanity would have made a big difference for people.
I think it would make a an extremely powerful difference in people, because if you look at how people seem to feel these days about their personal empowerment and specifically about their empowerment um, with with social issues and our ability to get things done, um, it would be very different. I think there's an overall sense of kind of uh, hopelessness that we are battling against right now.
Yeah, it's hopelessness, and it is also, which I guess is a part of hopelessness, is and the word that comes to mind for me is complacency. People are so complacent, and I assume that's because they lack hope. Um, I'm not really sure of the source of that. Um, trying to think it through, but certainly hope would be one of the things. But people are so, yeah, I'm not sure it's the total thing. 'Cause I think also people are comfortable. I think people are comfortable and yeah, they're comfortable. So I think it's between comfort and hope, somewhere in there. I guess people, I don't know, if you have hope, um, you would think you may not be complacent, but I'm not sure about that. Possibly, because I'm not sure. I think there's something else that has to be there with an individual to move themselves forward. I just think the complacency stands out for me as an issue.
It's a good defining word of I know how I felt at times myself. Um, moving the idea along from that idea of what it would be like if Martin Luther King had been president of the United States, and tying it kind of into the idea of Marianne Williamson now running for the presidency of the United States. Is there some sort of through line that you see from Martin Luther King to Marianne?
Absolutely. And I mean, I've said this all along. Let me just quickly say how I came across Marianne Williamson, and that was just before her, maybe a couple of years, maybe a year before her first presidency run. So that would have been in 2018, something like that. I had never heard of her, but I did a personal transformation course called Landmark Education, called the Landmark Forum. And if you guys see me flying, there's a fly in here. We have some fruit flies or something going on.
Okay.
And so I met her hearing about the Course in Miracles, not from her initially, actually from this transformation program I had done. And she was teaching the Course in Miracles, I heard, downtown here. I live in New York City, down in the Village. And for some reason, I wanted to go, but some reason I didn't make it. And that was the end of Marianne Williamson until literally I heard her, will have to be on YouTube, but this is the way I remember it, on YouTube, and across the screen came Marianne Williamson announcing her presidency for the United States. And I immediately and totally fell in love with her and what she was speaking about, and the possibility that was possible for this country and the world, I'm going to say right now. And I think, I'm not sure how soon it was, but it was relatively soon that I immediately equated her with not only Martin Luther King, but Gandhi. And people have heard me quote many times that Marianne Williamson is my Gandhi and is my Martin Luther King. That's who she is. That's who I know her to be. And I think there are two things that stand out for me. This is kind of, I want to say that I have not gotten hung up. I don't get hung up, I should say, and really concerned about policy statements and issue statements and where she is at on this and where she's at on that. I do know where she's at on a lot of things, a couple of things I don't agree with, but that's not what prompts me to support her. What prompts me to support her and my commitment is what I've seen what I saw both Gandhi and Martin Luther King do, and that was inspire people, empower people in themselves. And so I see her calling forth people for themselves and for the world. And I every time I hear her, I see that happening. I don't know, and I don't, and it doesn't, for me, when I observe that happening, it's not necessarily, oh, I support her because she's in favor of climate change or whatever that issue, whatever side she's on, which is she's believing that there is a climate problem, and there are other people that don't. But it's not that I see her bringing forth in people. What I see her bringing forth in people is their own say, their own belief that they have a say, one way or the other. I've seen her sit down with people on the opposite side. Let's just use the Hamas Israel war, where she, for lack of a better term, is neutral, and it's really not neutral. She's really speaking humanity and what's humane in this whole deal, where other people have sided on either side. But I've heard her not necessarily bring them together, but to be more humane, more humanity in the discussion and consideration. And they may not change their position, but and some of them have, not only on that issue, but a lot of issues, and they've come forth. So anyway, that, to answer your question, I think that is what I see in her, that she's bringing forth, that mirrors both Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Um, and that's it for me. She's extraordinary. And in that belief, I just don't see anybody else out there that comes close to being able to do that. All the other candidates are naming and arguing and promoting issue, this side, that side, this side, that side. Well, okay, and let me say something about that too, because I think let me say, to the extent that there are areas where I think I may not agree with. I don't think, any issue is up to me. And I think it's up to the people. So I believe that when Marianne gets in office, and she may flip on issues the way she is now, because the people are saying something different than what she's promoting or has been promoting. So I think in the end, it's going to be the people who are going to run this country, which is not happening now. It's corporations running this country. So whatever the majority are saying, whatever the critical mass, because I'm not sure it's always a majority, whatever the critical mass, I think she's going to follow that, and that's what I'm counting on.
Well, for me, that's what a good leader is. A good leader isn't the person who decides that they know the best about every issue.
Right.
A good leader is the person who can recognize um, where the intelligent people are on the issues, and bring those people together to figure out what the solution is that we try next. You
Absolutely.
know, I think that what you're saying is also profound, because in this time of change, like everything's changing so fast anyway. If you just decide that it's going to be this, once you announce it, times have changed, and that's not what's being called for anymore.
Right.
You know, and so there has to be that flexibility of
Absolutely.
uncertainty
Yes, absolutely.
in
And
this
along with
time.
that, also, it's changed, and it's also, what is the narrative? So the narrative right now is predominantly being taken over or created by the media, that's run by corporations. But
Mhm.
okay, so that's the narrative, but that's not necessarily the right narrative, or that is not the narrative necessarily that people want to follow. And that's also an issue. Because you get out here now, it's like, what do you believe? You're back and forth. Is it this? Is it that? I'm not sure. So we have to look to ourselves. We have to look at our own hearts. That's what she's calling for, our own hearts, our own belief in other people. And the other thing that stands out for me is respect for other people, regardless of where they may or may not be coming from.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that answer. Um, the last question that I have is just, do you have anything else that you would like to add in relation to Martin Luther King and Marianne?
No, not really, unless I can think of. Um, I mean, what comes to mind, and I don't know Gandhi's story that much. I know he was starving himself for his purpose
Mhm.
and coming up against death. Martin Luther King was coming up against death. I don't want to predict that for Marianne Williamson, that she has to be at a place that she has to come up against death to make the difference that we want, or the difference that's going to be necessary to move our country and the world forward. But it raises a question. I don't know. Um, it's an extraordinary commitment and role she's taken on, um, and I don't think people really appreciate that. I don't think people have appreciation what she's up against, what she's taken on as a human being. She's not. We kind of think we look at Martin Luther King and Gandhi as almost godly, and we can look
Mhm.
at Mary in that way also. Um, but she's also a human, and I don't know. I just 100%, 1000% believe in her, believe in her humanity, believe in her leadership, and believe what's possible for this world and this country with her.
Well, speaking of that human aspect of our world leaders, in the video that Marianne does, um, honoring Martin Luther King Jr., the one of the things that really impacted me was the way that she made him seem more human. You know, I was born after Martin Luther King was assassinated, like 1 month. So my whole life, he was this dead person in history. But she spoke of seeing an exhibit where they had a suit that he wore. And seeing the suit, she realized that he wasn't a really tall person, and then realizing that he had died, I think in his 39th year.
Yep.
Like, and being able to look at, where was I in my 39th year of life? And just what a person that is, to have that calling to do so much and to be so involved with the community at that age. And that's a person,
Yeah,
that's a person like you, that's a person like me.
absolutely.
And there it is, that message of calling out to people to become their best persons that they can be, not just for themselves but for everyone around them.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say one other thing too, and this is kind of I don't know, it's the truth. Let me just put it that way. Um, so I was around when Martin Luther King was doing his thing, if you will. I was at the march that they had in Washington. I was actually there, but I didn't go to the march. I went to the bar. I was drinking. I was in college and having a good time
Okay.
and partying. It was interesting because my roommate was very much involved, but I didn't have anything else. I was partying, period. And so I really kind of missed, what I know now about him and what I know about Gandhi is what I've studied and learned and heard about the two of them. Um, but I kind of missed all that. So you may people may want to look at, well, with that regret, which is really not regret because I was doing my thing. I'm okay with that. But now I had this opportunity to be with Marion as my Martin Luther King and my Gandhi in my world. So I didn't lose everything because of her.
You haven't lost a thing because of her,
Right.
right? Well, I think that's interesting. So what's going to happen with this interview is I'm going to cut it up, and basically we're looking for that first question that I asked, that what if Martin Luther King had actually become a president of the United States? And we're going to kind of put the different people's answers together to create a longer, kind of more integrated answer. And it should be very interesting. I think um, the idea is, um, you know, often it's easier to reimagine the past. Like, oh, if this had happened, then maybe that wouldn't have happened, or that, or whatever, rather than to imagine into a future where there's little reference to what you can see,
Right.
and so the idea is to link that idea of what we would be now if we had had a leader like Martin Luther King as a president in the past,
Yeah.
to what it is we can now achieve electing a leader like Martin Luther King Jr., which is right now, that's Marianne Williamson.
Yeah. And and I think you're saying this, I want to just throw this one word out. We need to be looking at and allowing for what's possible.
Mhm.
Not necessarily what didn't get done. And okay, so we did X, Y, and Z, but we still have X, Y, Z, which is not so great. But what's possible today? And that's what we need to be focusing on.
Yes, and all of the different possibilities.
Yeah. And miracles. I mean, that's, Marianne will use that word miracles, and people have a hard time, relating to that. But what was it? Kennedy said we're going to put a man on the moon in so many years. We put a man on the moon. Some people said that was a miracle, or that wasn't going to happen, and it did happen, no possibility. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. And if we're not living in possibility, we're not going anywhere. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.